Hello and welcome to another capsule. That's right, this is an Alpha Hours capsule. I know it doesn't seem like it, but this is a short section of our office hours streams we do on Thursdays. We take a look at the latest news for the game, for lore, updates, all sorts of things. And this is our monthly report. The monthly report is for Star Citizen for July 2022. We've been doing this all this year. It seems to have been fairly well received. This is not a summary. I always kind of talk about this ahead of time when I do these because I want to make sure people understand. I don't think that summaries are bad, but I do think that to get the best context of what's being said, it makes a lot more sense to just read the monthly reports. I will put the monthly report link down below if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact. Make sure you click that and read it yourself. If you absolutely cannot do that, I'm going to read practically word for word the entire monthly report. That way you understand everything that's been done, and I'll give you some context and my own thoughts as I go through it. As a result, this is likely going to be fairly long. At least 20 minutes, probably more like an hour, because this month was pretty big for the monthly reports. So I suggest grabbing something to drink, grabbing something to eat, or, pull up your work that you need to work and listen to this while you're doing that. Without further ado, let's get started with the July 2022 Star Citizen monthly report. All right, PU monthly report for July 2022. Welcome to July PU's monthly report. With Alpha 317.2 making it to the live service at the end of July, most teams shifted focus on tasks for the next patch release and beyond. For this month, you'll see progress on various dependencies for persistent streaming, Pyro, and the economy, and more. Read on for all the details. AI content. Last month, AI content dedicated a time to bug fixing existing features. They identified the top 20 usables that the AI interact with and set out to fix as many issues as possible in 2 weeks. The issues were triaged and arranged into 3 categories: bugs that AI designers could solve, bugs that AI animators could solve, and code issues not solvable by AI content. By the end, approximately 50 issues had been solved before the team returned to feature work. So they did a little bit of bug fixing. July's feature work included supporting the weapons vendor setup by creating a weapon pickup and place animations, progressing with locomotion polish mentioned from last month, and retargeting overlay animations to the female skeleton, which is something they've been working on for a while for the female skeleton, redoing it because they're not just overhauling the female skeleton for Squadron 42, but for the PU as well. So they're kind of reworking that whole thing. Mostly because, if I remember correctly, in Squadron 42, they recently started working on the female character model for the player. So they were doing all of those reworking for that. Because for those who don't know, it's actually a little bit smaller. The female models in the game, they're a little bit smaller than the males are in terms of height. The AI designers have continued implementing dynamic conversations feature, expanding it to eat and drink behavior. Drink behavior. Now NPCs can have conversations between bites and drinks. Another thing they've been seeing. I also completely skipped over the fact that they're doing a weapons vendor now, probably using the bartender UI AI kind of stuff, which they've mentioned as well as Squadron 42. So it's pretty cool. Probably taking the armory quartermaster. I forgot who it is. They're called anyways, but that person in the Stanton. You've probably seen them with you watch the Squadron 42 vertical slice, where he says, like, I need a plasma rifle with a 40-watt range. The guy steps back and goes, "Just what you see, buddy," as a, joke. Let's see. But yeah, that's another cool thing. One of the things they've been working on in the back end for a long time is AI having conversations. So AI talking with one another while they're just chit-chatting. It's one of those things that add a lot more flavor to the universe, so it doesn't feel like an empty void with AIs just walking around, like, or walking into walls. Having them talk about random things will add a little bit. So we are pleased with the result, as it makes the AI feel less individual and more connected with other NPCs. AI content team. AI engineers will now also seek out colleagues at wall panels and work zones, e.g. broken pipes, to start conversations. They're currently working on implementing chatter for AI in bunk beds and arcade machines too. Very Squadron 42 heavy for that one. AI features. For human combat, AI features continue to work on tactic selection, including implementing a more data-driven approach to setting up the scoring factors in DataForge. This will allow the designers to quickly tweak values to produce the best possible range of combat behaviors for the situation, including with multiple combatants with different setups and ranges. The solution extends to the function selection in Subsumption to allow the game code to register a custom probability calculator which will provide benefits in general, not just for combat behaviors. So for those of you who are wondering, yes, AI is dumb, but when AI is even working, they only have one notable thing, which is they bum rush you. What they've been trying to do with Squadron 42, and again, anything that's in Squadron 42 comes into Star Citizen, is they've been working on a lot more AI combat behaviors. And it seems like AI combat behaviors is done for Squadron, at least initially. So now they're porting that over to Star Citizen to make AI a little bit better. Same thing with the conversation stuff. That was also a Squadron 42 thing. And now it seems like they're done with it. And anything that gets done in Squadron 42 then gets ported over once they get finished. So now it might end up in 3.18, probably 4.0, but we'll see. They also began aligning the existing perception systems to a new design where the perception meter rises depending on different stimuli, hearing footsteps or gunfire, seeing a target, etc., and falls over time. Once different threshold levels on the meter are hit, they trigger different alertness levels that determine specific reaction animations and behaviors. For example, at the lowest level, the AI will react by simply turning their head towards the stimulus. At the middle level, they will investigate the stimulus, and at the highest level, they will enter combat. Stimuli can also impact the meter in different ways based on the conditions of the target, including whether they're crouched or standing and the location's lighting. There was something that was brought up on the round table that I was on with Space Tomato, which I'll try to put up here for those of you who missed it. Go check it out. It was me, Space Tomato, Level Cap, Morphologists, and Avenger 1. We're all talking about, old pillar talk style, just talk about the game. One of the things we brought up was that the AI is dumb. Like, they should be seeing you in certain situations and they don't react. This is part of that change as well. They're trying to add that. And this is something that's been going on for a long time, where they've had different situations where the AI wouldn't hear you if you were walking outside of a room, if they were in a different room. But if, they shined a light on you, they might be able to see you. So work also started on investigating behavior, with the devs implementing a system to allow NPCs to determine potential enemy hiding spots, check them, and keep the track of which ones they've seen. The next stage is for NPCs to share information so they can cover a level together. They're also working to improve the consistency of cover selection using the automatic cover generation system. They're also planning to improve the quality of cover and provide more information to the AI so less decision-making has to be made at runtime. That was the thing where they've removed the AI from the DGS and put it into a separate service, I think is how that works. They also blocked out animations for human AI mantling and vaulting to give NPCs more locomotion options than moving around the environment. Cleanup and timing tasks were also completed for Spec Ops animation sets. Nice! It seems like we're going to get all that variety that's been in Squadron 42 or been made for Squadron 42 is finally making its way to Star Citizen. Does this mean it's coming in 3.18? No. There's nothing in here that says that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it did, just based off of the timing. AI Tech. During July, AI Tech focused on extending the functionalities required to traverse navigation islands using special actions. This included implementing new adapters for navigation links to include mantling, jumping down, and vaulting. The basic idea is that using all the existing markup, we want to allow NPCs to perform similar actions to the player in the environment. For example, we adjusted the ledge options to include specifications that evaluate the nav mesh and link multiple islands correctly. Very cool. So you'll start to see, if you start mantling up things, AI might start chasing you. They also continued R&D on seamless transition into usables. This time they implemented a cleaner and more reliable system for sharp turn animations, giving more natural movements to NPCs following paths around corners. This allows NPCs to feel heavier and show weight balancing when moving over sharp corners. Very cool. If they're improving the reaction time and the different styles of AI, then they'll need to have that as a heavy NPC grounding a corner is going to be cornering it a little bit higher, and they'll probably have less time to react, so you'll be able to gun them down faster if they're turning around corners. Doors and corners, kid, that's where they get you. That's cool too. Progress is also made on the locomotion refactor. Last month, the team began improving how AI actors process movement, which will allow them to decouple movement requests from what processes it. This is an important change to better support multiple path followers used in different contexts. For example, actors, creatures, or NPCs driving a vehicle or pushing a trolley. They're currently preparing to integrate this into Squadron 42 branch and verify that everything works as expected. Very cool. Like I said, yeah. Process movement, allow them to decouple movement requests from what processes it. Okay. Again, it sounds like they're decoupling the AI NPCs from the AI from the DGS, the dedicated game server. So, might be wrong with that one. Let me know in the comments if I am. For the subsumption editor, within the sandbox tool, AI Tech implemented new functionality and stabilized the tool to finally open up the usage to all designers. A better AI debug UI using IM GUI is currently being implemented to allow the devs to select and inspect NPC behaviors. The tool can split the NPCs present into each zone, select multiple NPCs, and inspect their properties. Very cool. Easier to manipulate AI and see what's going on. Progress is also made on ship reinforcements for Alpha 317.2. The team made the feature more robust by adding better monitoring of the disembarkment process from the pilot's perspective. They also added an abort phase for the dropship in case the drop location is occupied, and the pilot can now monitor the presence of a player inside a cargo area. They also fixed several bugs relating to slow reaction time and desyncs / teleports. These issues are mostly caused by a low server frame rate, but the devs optimized the code and implemented tweaks to allow the code to better handle some of those situations. They still don't get out of the ships, but hey, it's a good start. AI vehicles. In July, the AI vehicle team finished enabling AI to use different ship modes. AI is now fully integrated with the ability to swap modes when required by the task they want to perform. Designers will also soon be able to give AI access to higher SCM speeds when designing behaviors. Bug fixes were also made throughout the month, including an issue with the Fly 2 not computing an efficient path, and dive attacks not ignoring driverless spaceships. Animation. Last month, the facial animation team further developed female vendors, outlaws, rescue and transport, and continued burning down emotes. Burning down just means making them. The motion capture team is currently building their new studio, which should be live by mid-August. Good to know. Art characters. The character art team continued to work on the frontier and high fashion outfits for the upcoming release. They also progressed with marketing items for both subscriber program and upcoming holiday events. Arts ships. Throughout July, the UK ship art team continued to gray box phase on the Argo SRV, finishing the exterior work before moving on to the interior. Development of an unannounced ship continued, which is currently moving from gray box to final art. That usually means that the ship's coming out in the next patch, if it comes from the final art. July saw the gray box pass phase complete on the cockpit, dashboard, and habitation and cargo hold. The team also progressed with the exterior hull to final art. The final art pass on an unannounced ground vehicle was finalized. The artist then moved them to pass of the MISC Hull C. I wonder if the final art pass on the unannounced ground vehicle was the Centurion. Sometimes they write this before something's released, so that may have been the Centurion. Who knows? White box pass began on an unannounced variant of an existing ship with modifications to the exterior nearing completion. Very interesting. A variant of an existing ship. I'm not going to speculate on it, but my guess is CIG's definitely heard people wanting a Terrapin variant, like a rescue and like a medical Terrapin. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got something like that. A resource management pass on the Aegis Hammerhead also began. This includes adding relays and modifications to existing component bays to make them all functional with some tweaks for their placement for balance. Very cool. In the US, ART transitioned to make their final pass on the Drake Corsair while supporting the system design on the Grey Box, taking on the main retro and MAV thrusters to the final stage. The port wings were also detailed and are almost ready to hand off. On the exterior, the nose was further detailed, and modifications were made to the decal texture to standardize the official Drake font. The team also took the interior cargo hold through final art, with the initial lighting pass being completed throughout the interior. Battle of the Bricks. For those who don't know, this was CIG and Eve Online did a stream where they battled each other for Legos, and they raised money for charity. That's pretty cool. Community. Expanding last month's content team released 2 more Alpha 317.2 patch watch posts. Patch Watch 2 dealt with the quality of life improvements coming with Siege of Orison, while Patch Watch 3 detailed the new racing track, the Snake Pit. The team also supported the Foundation Festival, a month-long celebration of the Star Citizen community that featured a free fly and the Tales of Camaraderie contest. Alongside the EVE Online community team, they held the Battle of the Bricks stream, raising money for Extra Life charity. We hope that everyone watching had a great time as we celebrated and shared passion for space games. Don't forget that all donations for Extra Life are still open until late December. Community team. The team also progressed with a new community hub and are currently preparing the launch of the Ship Showdown in August. Everyone asks me this question. I'm going to do this real quick. People know that I had a large hand in getting the Argo SRV, not the SRV, the MPUV, to be the king of the castle last year. For those of you who blame me, you're welcome. I revel in your tears. But people have asked me, which ship do you want to do it this year? And the answer is, I'd love to see the Grey Cat buggy get the love it deserves, because it's the first flyable, usable vehicle in Star Citizen. And it'd be great to see the respect it deserves. But if that doesn't make the final cut, then I'd love to see the Drake Mule. The Drake Mule is a fantastic little thing that, deserves an equal amount because, ground vehicles. It's a cute little shitbug. So I call it the shitbug because it's a dung beetle. It's small, boxy and carries around shit. So it's a dung beetle. All right, with that, let's get to the engine. Engine. In July, the physics team made several optimizations to the code. Okay, again. I have to say this again. Engine. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I am not an engine seer. I do not know the machine spirits. I can't turn rocks into replicators. I am not, in any way, shape, or form, someone who fully understands the engine that Star Citizen runs on. I will still read this because it's important to read it. And I will guess at some of the things. I'll probably be wrong. As I always say, if you are listening to this and you are an engineer and you want to clarify any bits that I talk about, please let me know in the comments below. I will pin the comment if I think it's good enough, if I think it's helpful enough for people to understand. But needless to say, let's get started with that. All being said, let's start with the engine. In July, the physics team made several optimizations to the code. Ray/box overlap checks were implemented in ISPC and are now also used in Ray world intersections, RWI, to quickly skip entity parts if there is no overlap of a ray and in entities' local bounds. Further optimizations include using a box pruner to process vehicle wheels and all their possible colliders and their parts more quickly, as well as SSE and AVX2 optimizations in the code that searches parts of the physical entity. Additionally, support for successive pulley attachments to rope entities was added, and the spatial configuration of interior grid types was changed to use more layers of internal nodes that are smaller in dimension. This, for instance, helped in Port Olisar, where a lot of the time was spent maintaining thunk lists, which is completely removed by this change. I have no idea what they just said. If you do, let me know. I see rope mentions and pulleys. On the renderer, the Gen 12 transition continued. For example, Gen 12 Scaleform UI rendering was enabled by default. Support for MIP map generation passes was added, and material overrides for the render nodes are now supported, including for multi-materials. The depth pre-pass submission is now skipped if motion vectors are rendered. Thread synchronization code in pipeline state object PSO cache refreshing, as well as the shader system was improved, and unnecessary stencil tests for the shadow map stage were removed. The render loading thread was replaced by a video rendering thread, which is needed for the sole purpose of rendering UI white in the game. Sole purpose of rendering UI while the game is loading. It's like you need that just to render white, the color white. Lastly, a bug that was crashing the video driver was fixed, and the entire render code was changed to successfully compile via include what you use IWYU. Various issues in the form of buffer overruns and low-level VFX renders code were also fixed. The Gen 12 ports of atmospheric and volumetric cloud rendering continued as lookup table generation for atmosphere as well as volumetric cloud pre-processing steps were successfully moved to execute through new APIs. The rendering of legacy spherical clouds was moved to Gen 12.2 and can now also render as part of the deferred pipelines forward stage, which will be enabled soon. This recent progress also resulted in various suggestions, some of which have already been implemented to refine the Gen 12 APIs for special cases so they can be ported straightforwardly and integrate better. Lastly, work on porting the remaining passes for atmospheric and volumetric clouds will commence in August. So a lot of stuff on the Gen 12 side is being added. Clouds are now rendered in Gen 12, which I believe was one of the last things they were looking to do. And height maps is the next big one. And we haven't seen anything on that. So we may see some of that other stuff. Well, it's not added. They haven't finished the atmospheric and volumetric clouds. It's starting in August. But they've said that Gen 12 is coming almost entirely with 3.18 is the plan. So on the core engine, entity lifetime code was adjusted for the new needs of a server meshing, with the goal of it being easier to use as well as creating a more refined feeling of persistence. A time-sliced entity density manager was implemented as part of the reworked entity lifetime server meshing. The background job manager was changed to better cope with the very long-running preempted background jobs to reduce runtime stalls. For example, stalls during shader compilation. Furthermore, component lifetime now has a cheaper custom weak pointer approach that the current std shared _ptr cannot provide. Moreover, star hash bind calling of the subzones was significantly optimized. The ability to set hardware, data, breakpoints from code was fixed. And lastly, Linux thread priority changed to use real-time FIFO scheduling. The remainder of the time was spent supporting Alpha 3.18 and bug fixing 3.17.x, especially analyzing the impact of 100-player servers. Stuff, I guess. Last month, the Arena Commander. Last month, the Arena Commander feature team fixed issues in both Arena Commander, AC, and Star Marine, SM, including some with map and game mode selection, scoreboards, level geometry, respawning, and AI spawning. Our community has been very helpful in identifying such issues as they appear, which we greatly appreciate. Arena Commander feature team. Additionally, onboarding improvements have made to how quickly and easily players get into sessions. Investigating into getting PU-based locations as environments in AC and SM also continued. Very cool. So we might see some more maps. I think that's when we say the Snake Pit is coming in as a map, so we might see stuff like that. Some changes to scanning, ping, radar design were implemented to both vehicles and FPS gameplay to allow players to find and identify contacts with greater ease. Finally, bugs were fixed to give the community as stable an experience as possible. Features, character, and weapons. With the new actor movement synchronization enabled for PTU, July saw the team focus on fixing issues, specifically with the extrapolation, when a local machine tries to predict what another player is doing. Extrapolation is necessary when network latency prevents data from arriving regularly. Incorrect prediction results in the player appearing to teleport or rubber band. When up-to-date data arrives from the server. The team will continue to refine the algorithm over the next coming releases and are specifically looking at improving handling the look input synchronization for the next patch. That's good. I didn't think that they've said in the past that they weren't going to really look at that until after they got server meshing done, server meshing and persistence in. The fact that they're starting to look at that now means that we might have desync locked down a little bit, teleporting and desync stuff. But maybe not. We'll see. In July, the team also started laying the groundwork for FPS devices. There are already some examples of these in the game, such as the grenades and mining gadgets. But as the list of devices expands, the team wants to take a more systematic approach to ensure the setup and flow are consistent across the board. Earlier in the year, the team reported work on the code-driven IK. This system is now been combined with a dynamic hand placement feature mentioned in the last month. Together, this ensures that animators have control over when to use hand placement or not, as well as tweaking some of its settings directly in individual assets. This has allowed the Maya side interface of this new IK system to mature further with several quality of life improvements. Cool. So we're getting more systematic. So what we've seen up to now has been a bespoke approach to stuff. They're looking to try to get that entirely moved over to more systemic approach, where like all devices are using the same animations and all that kind of stuff, as well as smoother animations for weapons and weapon holding. The code-driven IK allowed them to players to hold weapons in different positions, so you didn't have to always have this weapon, your hand in the same location. It would vary depending on what the weapon was, and it wouldn't be I believe it wouldn't be they'd have to go in and physically animate it. It was just dynamically placed where it needs to go based off of what the weapon's holding. So it's cool. Features, gameplay. The features team continued to develop life support and engineering gameplay. This included work on the MISC Hull A, as it's the first ship with interactable relay points that control resource distribution. The power plant and fuel tanks now power the system using the new tech. The UI was extended to allow players to control the temperature per room. Hull scraping is progressing well, with the team focusing on creating commodity boxes and repair ammunition at the dedicated filler stations in the Reclaimer and Vulture. So this is big. What I believe this means is, first of all, we're getting the first pass on, it's very old now, but there was a relay system that they showed where power and fuel would be transferred between these nodes. And if you took out one of those nodes, then power would no longer be able to flow to that part of the ship and it would have to take another route. If you took out enough nodes, then the power would not be able to travel to, say, like the front of the ship, but could still work in the back. They used the hammerhead as an example. This looks like they're trying to do that with the Hull A to kind of see that. Also included things like using fuel to start up your power plant. So your power plant will always run, but it needs a little bit of your hydrogen fuel to kickstart it, which is pretty good. they're also talking about using temperature per room, which is a pretty big deal. That means that you can change your temperature per room. So if someone boards you, you can drop the temperature down to as low as they possibly can get to screw over people without the right gear. So that's pretty cool. The other thing was hull scraping and a mention of repair. We might legitimately get repair in 3.18. Basic repair, it's just the reverse of hull scraping, hull splooging, hull attaching. I don't know what it'd be. Reverse hull scraping. So that might be coming in as well. But here's, this isn't the first time we've seen that repair. It's not the first time we've seen that repair. Repair like that has been mentioned multiple times in the previous months. So hull mending. Okay, hull mending. Graphics, VFX programming, and planet tech. July saw the implementation of dynamic bit set data structure, which replaces the T-joint bit set, as well as the investigation and testing of offline damage maps with persistence. The team also worked on separating CPU and GPU implementation, ensuring they result in the same damage map. The team finished porting gas clouds to Gen 12 and fixed several issues, including a GPU crash related to the feature. Work continued on Vulkan's scaleform functionality and particle mesh rendering in Gen 12. Progress was also made on port refraction and light beams to Gen 12. Canvas detail texture streaming was sped up, and image testing now waits for it to complete. Support for the silhouettes on the editor entity objects was added alongside improvements to render items sorting to make it consistent at different runs. Hair color and specular improvements were finished for the hair shader. They were also updated to tessellation and displacement on the organic shader. For jump points, the team focused on branching tunnels, which include fixing situations where the connecting segments self-intersect. Planet Tech team made improvements to the world and biome builder by moving mesh building to background jobs, substantially reducing shutters in editor. There were also fixes for mismatching physics meshes on servers, as well as a refactor of procedural entities, which improved planet loading time. 4-point breezure curves were also added to river generation alongside general improvements to river placement tool. Collision detection was added to Rastar to prevent modules from being placed where they overlap with Geometry 2. And this is the new sand caves that we saw in the roundup. So. Lighting. Last month, lighting's primary task was making headway into the backlog of tech and dev debt. I often get asked questions about, well, what about tech debt? Because people just learned about that recently and want to talk about it. Star Citizen's got massive tech debt and they're never going to catch up. This is the answer. They do regular updates to the tech debt all the time. They usually spend... It seems to be like once a month they go back and kind of rework through old tech debt to try to improve it, which is one of the reasons why things seem to be a little slower, because they also have to go back and fix older issues. This is a list of tasks or bugs that have built up that they either didn't have time to work on or weren't high enough priority to tackle immediately. For the most part, this work entailed minor polish notes for Orison and fixing minor bugs across other locations. They then moved on supporting the new sand cave location archetype. Compared to rocky caves, also known as Dwayne Johnson caves, sand caves feature more natural dappled light filtering in from surface above to create a very different mood and atmosphere. They also completed a lighting pass on the upcoming Origin 600i and Crusader Mercury derelict crash sites, integrating the nearby settlements into the landscape and stripping out the lighting from the ships. Lastly, they worked on hull lighting pass for the upcoming racing circuit being added to the Orison Convention Hall, which we heard about today. Narrative. Over the last month, narrative tackled tasks ranging from mission content to lore. Hey, on the mission front, the team generated text for the latest Reclaimer missions, as well as a variety of new delivery missions while working with the design teams in Montreal and the UK. July continued several other ongoing conversations into development of new mission types, one of which presents a unique fusion of narrative and design. So the team began figuring out how much content would be necessary to incorporate it into the game and whether it would be scalable to provide enough variety to keep it interesting. The team met with the environment and design teams to talk over Pyro's shops and overall economy to help differentiate the player experience from Stanton. To help support this, the team continued to work through the mocap data for the Frontier vendors captured at the end of June to get it all into the pipeline. 2 new narrative designers recently joined the team, who have been initially tasked to other teams to learn the setup and software. These roles will ultimately provide narrative support in the technical areas of design, setup, and voice packs to make the characters and locations feel closer to the intended vision and tone. Meetings were also held with the new in-game branding team in Montreal to review the various in-game corporations and manufacturers to standardize their looks, themes, and colors. Since so much of their marketing exists as an in-fiction content, this will establish a consistent tone and voice for the companies, whether they're appearing in-game or out. They also published another edition of Shubin's employee newsletter, Mining Rocks, a portfolio on the Nine Tails, an original untold tales about shocking discovery in Seoul, and another branch of Galactopedia entries. Very cool. Yeah, so what we see is they're doing a new mission types with a fusion of narrative and design, which is pretty cool. And then other stuff. They added some new people to help them, the more technical side of narrative. People talk about, I talk about lore a lot, but one of the things that people often tell me that I kind of have to correct people is people say, oh, well, lore is super important. It is important, but lore is meaningless without gameplay. And without having gameplay that's fun, no one cares about the lore. So this is the process. That's more of the technical side of narrative. Is this fun? Does this work? And then also, how can we incorporate it into the universe itself? That's more of a technical question than it is a writer question. A writer is just going to write about interesting things and make people seem believable. Whereas a, more technical side of things is, can you even do this in the engine? Will it be possible? How can you, make it fun while also making it interesting? So yeah, that's pretty cool. Tech animation. The tech animation team continued to invest time into the tool's codebase. Years of development and quick fixes are being triaged, consolidated, and revamped to fully conform to their coding standards and modularize the codebase to be more accessible to the technical animators. This will expedite the creation of tools and pipeline that rely on core processes. Alongside this, they're currently developing and integrating several new tool chains, CGA and SKIN loading in Maya, RBF solver development, and SSD and algorithmic animation pipeline support. Their future development roadmap is also in planning. Tech animation, I believe, is just building tools for the rest of the teams. So. All right, online services. This is the Turbulent Montreal team that just does online website. The online services, they also do connections with servers and stuff like that. They do a lot of stuff, but they're most notable for the website. The online services team worked on performance improvements to the entity graph service in July, unlocking substantial performance gains, in some cases double-digit percentages. I'm going to read that again. Online services team worked on performance improvements to the entity graph service. Persistent entity service. That sort of thing. Substantial performance gains, in some cases, double-digit percentages. Bug fixing and character reset testing were done for the new login flow. Then they moved on to phase 2 of the refactor, ledger and wallet, which will change how currency is handled in game. Again, it seems like they're saying that there's significant improvements. It may not be player side, but it doesn't matter if it's player side or server side. Any improvements to the game in terms of performance is good. If it's player side, great. If it's server side, even better. The team also completed a new Chrono service, which offers a programmatic API for distribution timers and alarms. For example, an end-to-end expiry of rental entitlements. That's good. Lastly, the team completed the first refactor of the new inventory management system, which is needed for persistent streaming. This is currently in initial testing with the actor feature team and affects almost all inventories in the game, although it is invisible to the player. Okay. So yeah, pretty good. Looks like they're doing a lot of performances on the back end and kind of reworking for the persistent streaming stuff. So. Live Tools Montreal. So this is the team that did the Mighty Bridge stuff. The Live Tools team implemented a new way to log into Hex 3.0's Network Operations Center, NOC, and manage the different roles and permissions. Because usability of tool is crucial, a survey is currently open among the frequent users. The team has been analyzed the feedback collected so far and is working on different solutions to improve NOC's design and usability. Turbulent Web Platform. Last month, Turbulent's web platform team worked on the cleaning up of MISC and Crusader skins in the CSM tool, making integration cleaner. They then designed a wireframing page to better communicate patch status. In the Pledge store, the team worked on creating cleaner disclaimers around Warbond SKUs, concept standalone ships, and buyback rules relating to discounts. The community team continued to work on the new features for the community hub, adding moderation and an honor system in July. Finally, for Turbulent, the backend infrastructure team upgraded PHP, making the backend more efficient and organized in adhering to code standards. UI. Last month, the UI team continued to develop the new Star Map, improving labeling and concepting of how to display space clouds in a way that looks great and performs well. Bugs were also fixed for the Siege of Orison update, and adjustments were made to the loadout system in support of persistent streaming. And lastly, VFX. July saw the VFX team collaborating with the art and lighting teams to modular sand cave locations. With these modules being used by design to lay out the cave interiors, the VFX artists needed to be creative in how they placed their effects to cut down on repetition. Finally, VFX Concept kickstarted pre-production on Quantum Travel Experience and the general Quantum Travel visual overhaul. Very cool. So let's do a quick recap. They're overhauling the quantum system. They're working on cave locations. They're continuing to work on the star map and Siege of Orison stuff. There's a big refactor for the back end for PES. PES may be giving them significant performance boosts. It's not clear if it's for the servers or for players. Either one's good. Let's see, what else is the big ones? Narrative, new, more intense narrative missions being added. Lots of work on the sand caves. Gen 12's continuing to work. A lot of stuff is being added there. Oh, the Hull A is the guinea pig for life support and engineering gameplay. New consistent systemic approach to FPS devices. They're looking into adding real locations in the PU right now into Arena Commander. Lots of stuff on Gen 12. We've got significant work on the Drake Corsair, a pass on the Hammerhead, a white box of an unannounced variant, final art pass on a ground vehicle, and a new pass to the MISC C. And another final art on another vehicle. Gray box pass on the SRV. Some of this other stuff. Bunch of AI tech stuff. A bunch of AI tech. Locomotion refactors. AIs talk with one another. They're smoother in animations. They're investigating, so they're less dumb. They're more tactical, and they did fix a bunch of bugs. So, all in all, it's a pretty big monthly report. Probably not as meaty as last month's, but we still get a lot of information, especially everyone's favorite new ships. Lots of new ships coming out in the near future. A lot of like tactile, real discussions on PES implementation. So it all sounds good. But as always, I want to know what you think in the comments below. Good, bad, and I have no idea if anyone really watches this or enjoys this. Is this helpful for you? Do you enjoy listening to these on your own? Tell me in the comments below, because that helps spread the love, spread the word. Telling your friends about this also helps, because it encourages, YouTube to say, hey, this is a good thing. So liking the video helps. And of course, subscribe for when these come out, and hit that little bell icon if you really want to know exactly when these come out. I do this every month. This and Squadron 42, and Squadron 42 will be next week. So, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.